Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have a very exciting episode for you this week. It is one of my favorite times of the month. It is a new installment of Exploring the Warner Archive. This is where we look at one of my favorite labels, the Warner Archive, and we take a look at some of their newer offerings, as well as dig around and dig up some of their older titles that maybe were overlooked at the time, or maybe you're newer to the Warner Archive, and maybe you don't know everything they have to offer. But these titles are still great, and I think they have a need to be in the spotlight once again, and I'm happy to do that. So I'm going to dig through all these titles right now. I'm going to start with one of our new ones, and that is starting with a TV film offering. This is the 70s film Telepilot Earth 2. This was in production to potentially launch a new series. It never made it to that. But we have this TV film that this is actually the international version of this. So it has a few extra minutes that were included exclusively for an international release that we can now see in its full glory here on Blu-ray. Just for a rough synopsis of this, it's a set far in the future. There's a space colony called Earth 2. That's basically a utopia. Everyone's peaceful with one another. You can't even have toy guns. Everything's just kind of a utopia until one day they come across a Chinese satellite that it has like 3 nuclear warheads, that they are warned by the Chinese that if they attempt to tamper with these, they will potentially spark a World War III. But they take it upon themselves to not heed that warning and try to disarm these warheads and try to maintain peace in the galaxy, basically. It is a science fiction tale, but it is kind of more of a grounded one. There's not like mythical creatures or anything like that. It's pretty grounded science fiction in that respect, and it's fairly entertaining. I enjoyed it as like a science fiction outing. Decent character work, really nice special effects. Some of the people who worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey lended their efforts on this one. So some really good production design for the time, especially. And it would have been interesting to see where this would go if it did turn into a full series, but it did not. So I'm glad that even though this is kind of like a failed pilot, like a glorified pilot, I'm glad that Warner Archive thought it was important, special enough to give it a Blu-ray release, because it's one of those one rare gems that if it wasn't for physical media, you would never ever see it again. And this is a good release. This is from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. It looks really good. Got some really great detail in this. Nice rich colors. No crushed blacks or anything like that. Everything looks very nice. DTS 2.0 audio also sounds likewise very clear and crisp and everything. This isn't an overly active film, like not a lot of action scenes. It's more, some of the more thrilling set pieces are more low-key, but they are quite engaging, and everything sounds great. And there's only a trailer for this one, but in terms of what you could want from this release, it pretty much delivers. So if you're interested in sci-fi films, this is a good one. Earth 2, worth checking out from the Warner Archive. One of my personal most anticipated of this month's slate from the Warner Archive is the newest Hanna-Barbera offering, and that is the Magilla Gorilla Show, the complete series. Now, this is a Hanna-Barbera series that is one of the ones I had not picked up on DVD. I picked up a lot of them back in the day, but this is one that I had missed, even though I was very interested in it. This is a character I never even actually saw in reruns back in the day, so I never really had a good context for the character, but the character just seemed fun, so I always wanted to see what this show is about, and so I'm glad this got a Blu-ray complete series. And for those who don't know, like me, who are coming to this, it's Magilla Gorilla. He's basically a oafish, like very destructive gorilla that lives in a like a pet store. And there's this owner that's always wanting to get rid of him and stuff, but by the end of his segment, he usually always ends up back at the pet store because whoever intends to buy him or like get him for a specific purpose, be it like being on a football team or being in space or all kinds of stuff, they usually end up thinking that they are better off not having this destructive gorilla around. But then there's also a couple other segments for each. So there's like basically like 7 or so minutes for each segment. So there's a Magilla Gorilla segment. There's one with Ricochet Rabbit. That's usually more as like an Old West type thing. I really like Ricochet Rabbit. He's a lot of fun. And then you have Pumpkin Puss and Mush Mouse. And they have a fun dynamic with one another as well. So there's 3 segments typically for each episode. And they are fun. There are 23 episodes in this series, so it wasn't on a super long time, but what is here I found very entertaining. And these are, I don't have, like I said, I don't have the original DVDs, but from what I've read and everything, these are been more restored than the DVDs versions in that this now has the opening credits, which apparently weren't on the original one. So you have the original theme song and everything, and that includes a shout out to like the sponsors of the show, and then there are some interstitials that were left off previously, like bumpers and stuff. That there's even at the end of each episode, there's like a tease for the next series that's going to be on, which is a fun kind of touch. So you get a lot of these little bits of animation that just didn't make the cut previously that have been newly unearthed by the Warner Archive to be the most complete version of this show possible. I think maybe there are minor things here and there that maybe aren't quite 100% as like aired accurate. I think maybe the opening song may have been sped up or something like that, I believe I read, but I do not have that context of having grown up with the song or anything. But from what I can tell, Warner Archive has done everything they can to make this as accurate and complete as possible for animation fans, and they've done a really nice job with this one, including going back to the original camera negative, giving that a 4K scan, and this looks very nice, bright, bold colors throughout each segment, and just no jagged lines or anything like that, no crazy compression artifacts. Great DTS 2.0 audio, makes every line come through clearly. Everything looks really nice. The unique material, like the bumpers and everything, I think you can tell that maybe they are not from the same like pristine source as the Magilla Gorilla, like the main segments, because some of those do look a little like maybe like just a generation down in terms of quality. It's not a dramatic downgrade in quality, but just know that if you see kind of like a little bit of drop in quality in some of the bumpers and stuff like that, I think that is due to them not having like as great of a source element with those. But everything blends pretty well in terms of video quality. I was very pleased. And likewise with the audio quality, everything's like sounding good. Minor things here and there where you maybe get a little bit of age fluctuation, but everything seems pretty great. You do get some bonus features, including a couple of featurettes and some bonus shorts that were included that I think they aired in syndication with some bonus shorts, but they weren't as a part of the original package, like as aired. So these have been newly included on the Blu-ray release. So you can now see these segments not integrated into any specific episode, but included on their own on the last third disc. And yeah, so these, for Hanna-Barbera fans, they've been doing a lot of great stuff this year alone. They just announced Wacky Races recently, which I'm very excited to get to that as well. That is one I have on DVD. But in terms of their animated output, Warner Archive's really been doing a great job recently. If you haven't picked up like Top Cat or Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, make sure to check those out. But Magilla Gorilla, that's the newest one that's out. And it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed learning about this character, and excited for everyone else, if they don't know Magilla Gorilla, to get to know him on Blu-ray. This looks really nice. 3 disc, really great set, and affordable. So animation fans, check out the Magilla Gorilla show, the complete series. Another fun new kind of series from the Warner Archive that I'm excited to dig into is the Monogram Matinee series. This is volume 1. This has 3 features on a single disc, which may sound a little eyebrow raising, but these are kind of shorter features just by nature of what these were. Monogram was kind of like a Poverty Row studio, so these were kind of B pictures. They weren't given like the biggest budgets, and they didn't have the biggest stars or anything on it, but they were very entertaining for their day, and they are still entertaining. So Warner Archive has brought this volume 1, which includes Mississippi Rhythm, Western Renegades, and Crashing Through. So you have the likes of Jimmy Davis, Johnny Mac Brown, Whip Wilson, and more. And with these 3 titles, only one of them runs over an hour long. So you have one that's 54 minutes, one that's an hour and 8 minutes, and then another that's 54 minutes. So they kept these pretty tight, but I found myself not minding that whenever I watched it, because I did feel like each story was complete and as to what it wanted to tell. Mississippi Rhythm is more of a tale of like, it's one of those tales where there's corruption in a town. There's a man who inherits some property within the town. He goes to kind of sort out that situation. Then he comes across some ne'er-do-wells who are kind of exploiting the people of the town, and tries to help the town get their rights back. And then Western Renegades and Crashing Through, those are more traditional, like kind of like stagecoach, like trying to foil like stagecoach robberies, and the new person coming into town and trying to like stop kind of the, once again, ne'er-do-wells that are doing bad things within the town. Not reinventing the wheel with these westerns, but they are fun for what they are, and there's a little bit of variety between them. The action is fairly solid. If you like kind of like a western jaunt and you don't need huge stars to anchor those, the Monogram Matinee series, this is a really cool like outing from the Warner Archive, where they're kind of rescuing some very obscure titles, giving them a really nice presentation. And with this being labeled volume 1, it gives me hope that hopefully, if this sells well, which if it sounds interesting to you, make sure to pick it up, because I want this to sell well. Hopefully they'll continue this for a while, because Monogram has such a vast catalog that is very unlikely to be explored if it's not in some kind of form like this, that by a company like the Warner Archive, who are going to invest that level of care. And all of these have been remastered. They've been restored from the nitrate and safety elements, the original safety elements. So not always the negative, just by the nature of what these were. Probably the negatives weren't even preserved like that, or I think this might have been one of the titles where maybe some of their negatives were destroyed in the George Eastman house fire. I know one of the ones I'm talking about today, that was at least the case. But you wouldn't really notice a huge downgrade in quality from what we usually see from a Warner Archive title. Everything looks pretty nice and clear, maybe minor specks here and there, but overall these look very nice. Not too soft or anything like that. Maybe just a little bit less crisp than your normal average Warner Archive title. Still, all of these look very good. DTS 2.0 audio. No special features, but you have the 3 features themselves on this disc, so I think that more than makes up for it. So Monogram Matinee Volume 1. Some good films in here. Very short, breezy watches, but they're fun if you are a fan of the Western genre, so make sure to pick it up if it sounds interesting to you. My next new title is one from one of my favorite Hollywood queens. We have Joan Crawford in Sadie McKee. This is one of her early efforts. This is Joan as a young woman who decides to run away from her life to get married to this guy who is kind of down on his luck, but they know that their love can keep them together and everything. But, of course, once they run off together, the man starts acting like a little bit of a shit, and he takes off to like make money or whatever, but he goes off with another woman to like act in a show with her, leaving Sadie, our Joan Crawford character to kind of fend for herself, and she has a couple of different adventures and roads that she goes down. Some that leads her to a wealthy man who's a extreme alcoholic who she tries to rehabilitate, but she always has this kind of fire burning for this guy that she was left by at the beginning, and how that kind of eventually makes its way appearance back at the like throughout the tale and everything. But it's basically Joan Crawford trying to live her best life, while a bunch of men who don't deserve her are in her orbit, not treating her well usually, but she perseveres and usually brings a little bit more light into people's lives. I like this one pretty well. I'm not a big fan of where it ended up. I won't spoil anything, but I just want the best for Joan. So the way some people treat her was not always my favorite, but she's always a very captivating screen presence. So overall, I did enjoy the movie. She does a really great job in this. It has a good supporting cast as well, and everyone does a nice job. This is directed by Clarence Brown. Not an overly long movie. It's about an hour and a half. So if you're a fan of Joan Crawford, this one is a pretty entertaining one. This is one that is from a 4K restoration of the best preservation elements, which look pretty good. There are minor like hiccups here and there where you can tell like this is not an original camera negative, but overall this is a pretty crisp picture, no major blemishes. This is Warner Archive that we're talking about, so they take a pretty good care to restore things as well as they can. Sounds pretty good too for a film of this age. Maybe minor like humming and stuff here and there, but overall this has been remastered quite well. And then you have 3 Merry Melodies restored features and then a trailer. So if you want some Merry Melodies shorts, they are on here, and then you have a trailer. But overall, Joan Crawford fans, anytime we get new things from her, it's a win. So here's another one from her, Sadie McKee, worth checking out. Even if I don't love every element of the writing, it's still very much worth a watch just for Joan alone. My final new title is I believe it's a 70s movie. It is Hitman. I believe this would kind of fall into the blaxploitation genre. It doesn't go as like hard on certain tropes as certain titles in that subgenre, or one of which I'll talk about next. But Hitman, it's a kind of a loose Americanized remake of Get Carter, but it is about a man who his brother has ended up dead, and he is on a trail to figure out what happened to him. So he's going to track down all these people that contributed to his brother's downfall, and how he is going to make that right by his moral standards. So it's kind of a revenge tale, but has like a really cool cast, including an appearance from a younger Pam Grier. She is acting as a porno actress in this one. But there's a lot of good people in here. This is another good one from this kind of subgenre. Entertaining, actually a pretty solid script. I mean, they are following kind of the Get Carter template, but there's no like overly hokey dialogue or anything. Everything, but it has just kind of like a cool aura that goes down well. So I was glad to discover this one. I know a lot of people are happy whenever Warner Archive kind of digs into this era of cinema, and they've done a really nice job with this one, including giving it a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. This is probably one of the better looking new films that I'm talking about today. Just a really great looking, consistent transfer, great bold colors, no damage, great compression, everything holds up very well. Really great DTS 2.0 soundtrack that takes the music in here and just really makes it very powerful and consistent. And unfortunately, not much in the way of special features. There's only a trailer, but the AV presentation is so solid that you can't really complain. So Hitman, if you're a fan of these types of films, it is very much worth checking out. But one that I want to talk about, since I knew I was talking about Hitman, that is more like kind of firmly in the blaxploitation genre, is Cleopatra Jones. This is a fun one. uh, just about our titular heroine, Cleopatra Jones, who's a badass, who is trying to keep a very cartoonishly villainous Shelley Winters, who plays like a lady, I believe they just call her Mama, who's really got her hands into a lot of shady dealings, but she's really turning that kind of uh, like smarminess up to an 11. She does a really great job in her kind of villainous role. And Cleopatra Jones is there to put her in her place. So if that sounds good to you, you're gonna have fun with Cleopatra Jones. It's just a really amusing, good time. Nice transfer from Warner Archive. This was one that they released back in 2019. It's from a remaster of, I'm not exactly sure of the provenance of this one, but it's a really nice remaster. Nice colors, no damage. Everything looks pretty solid. I didn't notice anything that makes it totally different from what I noticed with the Hitman release. This is DTS 2.0 audio, sounds great, and you have a trailer. So once again, not much in the way of special features, but you do get a trailer and a good AV presentation of a really fun movie for Cleopatra Jones. Now, my next one, I got because I wanted to watch this around St. Patrick's Day. And I kind of didn't do my research as to who made this movie, but it kind of clicked to me once I did watch it, and I remembered why this name sounded familiar. But we're heading back to a 2017 release of Finian's Rainbow with one Fred Astaire, Petula Clark, Tommy Steele. Now, Finian's Rainbow was known to me. I knew the name, I found out, because I knew it as a part of the legacy of Francis Ford Coppola. Yes, director of The Conversation, The Godfather, Megalopolis. Francis Ford Coppola, he made this unlikely musical back in the day with Fred Astaire as one of his earliest films. Not his absolute earliest, but one of like that early run of films. It's quite unlike most, like maybe One from the Heart would be the closest that I've seen that's like would be on that same wavelength as this one. But this is still, it's more in the vein of like your classic old school Hollywood musical. It is adapted from a stage musical, which I've never seen or heard or anything. I haven't experienced it any time before. And this is notoriously kind of ranked lower in Coppola's filmography. I didn't think it was a bad movie, but I can definitely understand why it ranks lower. It is a bit of a bit unwieldy, I will say. It is 2.5 hours long. This is the roadshow version, so you have a proper like intermission and exit music and all that kind of stuff, and so this is nice and classic and respectable and all that kind of stuff. But the narrative is a little all over the place. It involves Fred Astaire coming from Ireland to bringing a pot of gold that he stole from a leprechaun to plant in like Mississippi, so kind of like a or Kentucky-ish era, so, like in the American South. It is like the lore that it will like replicate this gold. So like his plan is to borrow this leprechaun's gold, kind of replicate it, give it back. But he doesn't realize once he takes that gold, it makes these leprechauns not able to grant wishes. So a leprechaun follows him, played by Tommy Steele. He is with his adult daughter, played by Petula Clark, and they come across this community where there's some Southern bigots and all kinds of people, some really awful people trying to take away the land from some like good hardworking folk and trying to like screw them over with regulations and everything. It's a very, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's romances, there's magical realism, there's dance numbers, there's singing. There's one thing I do have to note, and one of the most unfortunate aspects of this is there is a segment where there are wishes in this movie. So like there are wishes granted, and in a moment of like kind of anger, a woman wishes that this racist man could like know how it feels like to be an African American. So in doing this, this white man is turned into a black man, which requires blackface. He is in this for a very long time in the movie, and like discovering what it is like to like exist as a black man in America at this time. And I didn't love it. It's a very kind of like uncomfortable situation, and it's like it's a choice. That's all I'll say. And I don't know how they handled this in like recent revivals of the musical or anything, which I've heard good things about. But it's a jarring thing to witness whenever I thought I was just going to see like a musical with leprechauns and magical realism. I didn't expect like blackface. But Fred Astaire, this is one of his older older in his life, and I believe this is his last musical. He's still very spry and very entertaining in this one. He very much dominates the screen. And then there's a lot of great character actors and stuff. Petula Clark she's a great singer, for those who know, but she does a really great job acting as his daughter. And there's just a lot of stuff going on in this one. So I enjoyed it, but there's just a lot here that makes me raise my eyebrow, and it's a little bit overly long. Even Coppola himself has said that there are things that he would change about this movie. So I would not be completely surprised, given his penchant for making like director's cuts of movies, for him to eventually revisit this one and maybe try to make his own kind of special re-edit of this. But as it is, this Blu-ray, it's a nice version of this movie that's flawed but entertaining. And you get a 2K scan of the inner positive. Looks very nice, very natural. There are some opticals that there's slight downgrades in qualities in some of those transitions, but that's just in the nature of the filmmaking. It's not super jarring. Like I said, this is a roadshow version, DTS 5.1 audio. So because it's a musical, a lot of these were configured to like have a nice surround sound, 5.1 sound quality. Sounds really nice and rich. You do get a commentary track from Coppola, a 26-minute like premiere featurette, and a trailer. So overall, Finian's Rainbow, it's an interesting one. I'm glad I watched it around St. Patrick's Day, even though it wasn't like overly Irish, but it's more Irish than some. I found it entertaining. It's an interesting discovery. Check it out if you want to see a weird aspect of Francis Ford Coppola's filmography, or you're just a fan of movie musicals. It is worth checking out at least once to see where you fall on this scale. So Finian's Rainbow, a light recommendation for this one. But that's not the only director where I was watching something that it's surprising in their filmography. So we have, I believe, the first like major feature from Sergio Leone. We have the Colossus of Rhodes. So this is like a big swords and sandal epic with Rory Calhoun in the lead. And it's not an overly complicated story. It involves like a man kind of coming to town, where they are constructing this huge figure, this Colossus, in the city as kind of like a major testament to the people and the strength of the community and everything. But this is actually taking a lot of resources away, and the king, or like the ruler of this, isn't really beloved by his people. He's kind of seen as like valuing himself over the actual good of the people. So the idea of spending all this money on this big Colossus isn't the best. So there's like a whole rebel faction that it's going into, potentially overthrowing the king. And then Rory Calhoun's kind of like mixed up in all of this, and there's romance and all kinds of everything. This is actually my second time watching this. I watched this about 5-ish years ago. I remember I recorded off of Turner Classic Movies. And I was interested to check it out again on Blu-ray. This was first released on Blu-ray in 2018. I think that was a reason for me watching it on Turner Classic Movies at that time, because I had seen that it was released on Warner Archive, and I wanted to check it out. And I liked it enough to check it out again. It's not like the best, it's far from the best Leone movie, but in terms of a swords and sandal epic, I do find it fairly entertaining. It's pretty lengthy, about 2 hours and 10 minutes long. Some good action, especially when it comes to with the Colossus. It's not something that comes alive or anything. It's like a Clash of the Titans type thing. It's just a normal statue with some military features baked into kind of the core of it. But some decent performances, fine narrative. Like, it's, if you like the genre, it fits well within the genre. And this Blu-ray, I have to be honest and say it's not one of the best I've seen from the Warner Archive. From what I've researched about this, there is a better looking version of this movie and a longer version of this movie available in Germany, I believe. That is of the original Italian cut of the movie. Now, a lot of these movies, all these Peplum movies, were kind of like mainly productions in Italy or co-productions of Italy. And so I would theorize, I do not know, that maybe Warner Archive did not have access to the original like camera negative that was probably in Italy, and they probably weren't able to secure that for their own transfer of this. So it is not the strongest transfer compared to the screen caps I've seen of what Germany's Blu-ray was able to offer up in a version that's like 10 minutes longer, so the Italian cut. So it's a shorter version, doesn't look as good, but that German Blu-ray also doesn't have English subtitles. So unless you speak Italian, I don't think it'll be much help to you. But I do want to put that out there. I always want to be honest with you. It still looks decent. It is just, you can tell that there are some source limitations that just aren't able to be totally overcome on this Blu-ray. Maybe if circumstances ever change, maybe there can be another remaster that's English friendly from someone in the world. But as of now, this is the best English friendly release. And it doesn't look horrendous. It's just not one of the best from Warner Archive, who sets the bar so high for themselves. It is hard. You have to be kind of harsher on them whenever things don't quite reach that for them. But overall, decent video quality, audio quality is pretty good as and you get a commentary track, which is also pretty good. So the movie itself, it's entertaining for a swords and sandal epic. The Blu-ray is fine. It's the best that's on the market, but keep your expectations in check because it's not the best from Warner Archive, but still worth checking out, especially as just a weird slice of Sergio Leone's filmography that you might not expect from him. So make sure to check that out. Now heading back over firmly in the range of Hollywood pictures, even though has a European bent, I guess I would say, it is Kirk Douglas in, I believe it's Vincent Minnelli's 2 Weeks in Another Town. So it's Kirk Douglas alongside Edward G. Robertson. You have Sid Charisse, who I've recently professed my love for on a couple different Warner Archive episodes. I do. She's wonderful. But we have her here, Kirk Douglas, as a kind of washed up actor who's been spending the past 3 years in a sanitarium trying to get sober. He has recently got out of the sanitarium, and he wants to get back into the pictures and reteam with his old friend, played by Edward G. Robinson, who happens to be shooting a picture overseas, and there's a part for him in this. But once he gets over there, he learns that there is a kind of tension on the set. Edward G. Robinson, kind of like his character is kind of falling apart. He has all kinds of stress. He's trying to get things on time, under budget. His wife's there, kind of like their anniversary is coming up, and she doesn't really like Kirk Douglas's character. And there's all kinds of stuff's going on. There's romances on set. Everything's just kind of falling apart. And Kirk Douglas he comes into this and ends up taking over for Edward G. Robinson through circumstances. And this is rumored to be based on a real life Hollywood circumstance, I would say. I can't remember. I think it's not Eddie Mannix, but it's someone. It was like a star and producer, and his wife had a complicated relationship that's similar to Sid Charisse, Edward G. Robinson, and Kirk Douglas in this movie. So if you're interested in Hollywood lore, I'm a big listener of You Must Remember This. So I kicked myself that I can't remember all these titles, but or all these people. But if you like sordid Hollywood history, dramatized, this one's pretty interesting. There's a lot jammed into this movie that maybe could have been streamlined a bit. It makes some of the narrative a little murky at times. But overall, I leaned into kind of the melodrama of it all and ended up enjoying this one. So if you're a Kirk Douglas fan, make sure to check this one out. I'm a big Edward G. Robertson fan, so it's always good to see him, especially in a role that's not completely like hardened gangster. There's a little bit of nuance to him here that I like. And there's also a pretty good supporting cast I haven't really delved into in the great detail, that they're pretty good as well. Good cinematography, like some nice location work, and everything looks good, sounds good. This presentation, this was a 2018 release. I'm not sure the provenance of the master, but it looks very nice. I was very pleased with this. Very colorful, beautiful shooting locations. No damage, anything like that. Everything looks good, sounds good with DTS 2.0 audio and only a trailer, but good enough presentation that I can't be mad at it. 2 weeks in another town. Watch a lot of Vincent Minnelli movies, and I'm glad to have another one on Blu-ray. This one's worth checking out if you're a fan of like Hollywood history type movies. Going over to my first of two war movies, we have the 2017 release of Battle Cry, which is a pretty lengthy war epic. We are clocking in right at 2.5 hours, which I was watching a lot of longer movies for this outing and that season of Magilla Gorilla that I've been going over the past few weeks. This is a war epic that doesn't contain a lot of war. This is more so about like a group of men that's largely focused on like them getting into the war effort, so like World War II, and like basic training and their time like during like off base times whenever they're like kind of stationed places before they're like deployed to actually fight in wars. But there are some wartime efforts in here. I really like this one is because I like war films that let you into the like backgrounds of the characters and make you care about them before they are shipped off to be slaughtered. So there's some interesting things here about like grief and second chances and like valor, all that kind of stuff is kind of wrapped up in here in a way that I found very engaging. I enjoyed it. I love a good war movie, and this one works pretty well for me. I think Van Johnson or Van Heflin is probably the biggest name in this one. You got Mona Freeman, Nancy Olson, James Whitmore. So not like a ton of big names in here, but those who are in here, they do a very good job in here. You get a good audiovisual presentation, including DTS 5.1 audio, with war pictures. Like musicals, you like kind of a bigger, grander sound, and this one definitely lands a punch. It's a really nice immersive soundtrack. I don't know the exact source of the master, the HD master, but it looks very nice. Very impressed with that. And only a trailer for this one. But once again, good audio visual quality. So if you're a war fan, like fan of war movies, Battle Cry, it's a good character driven one that I enjoyed. Now, one that is still character driven, but a little bit more like balanced with the war efforts. We have a 2018 release of Never So Few with Frank Sinatra and Gina Lola Brigada. And then you have a young Steve McQueen here. This is one of his first big movies that he starred in. Frank Sinatra asked director John Sturges to give this young promising newcomer a chance, and he definitely took that advice, gave Steve McQueen a shot, and then of course it would lead him to reteam with Sturges again on stuff like The Great Escape. So that definitely worked out in their favor. But Steve McQueen definitely makes an impression Early in his career, Frank Sinatra is a captivating screen presence here. This focuses more on the side of war, still World War II, but shines a spotlight on some of the kind of smaller outfits, like for international outfits, like the citizens of Myanmar who helped fight against the Japanese, and how Frank Sinatra's character kind of collaborates with them and tries to help them out. And the title Never So Few is just like talking about how never have so few people, like in numbers, made such a big difference within the war. So it's really a testament to these people and their impact on the war. So there's all that in one kind of side of the plot, and the other side of the plot involves like a romance between Frank and Gina, and that doesn't always work as well. They have a good chemistry, but it's just kind of tonally erratic a little bit in this one. That's not as satisfying as something like Battle Cry, but I still enjoyed it. It's just a little bit tonally, like I said, not quite in sync for me to like make the maximum impact, but I still enjoyed it. So Never So Few, worth checking out again if you're a war fan, but maybe check out Battle Cry first and then check this one out if you're a fan of Frank or Steve McQueen. Then definitely check that out. Comes from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive. Looks very nice. No major complaints, anything like that. DTS 5.1 audio, and then a trailer. So sounds great. Not much in the way of special features, but just another great presentation from the Warner Archive. And I started with a made-for-television movie, and I'm going to end with some made-for-television movies. The first is another telepilot. This actually did lead to a series. This is The Man from Atlantis. So this has a young Patrick Duffy, almost unrecognizable to me, but young Patrick Duffy before he was on Dallas as a young man who is found washed up on a beach. He's taken in and quickly learned that he is not human. He is kind of has these aquatic features, not kind of similar to like if he was a merman, like breathes underwater, can go to extreme depths, all that kind of stuff. So he has like part of a sea person. And of course, when you have someone who's different and has tests run on them, eventually the military is going to get involved and can see how he can help them kind of discover certain areas of the sea that can help them out. And the first part of this movie I enjoyed a little like more than the second half, where the first part it is them learning about this young man, the female scientist who's kind of like taking the lead on his case, developing like a connection with him, like a friendship and everything, and eventually him getting convinced to go on this kind of expedition. And then things get a little bit overly hokey, where he discovers on like this undersea lab with like a mad villain, like scientist type villain, and it kind of goes overboard. And it's fun enough, but it is very hokey and silly. I think there are 3 other kind of made-for-TV movies of this before they eventually went to series. From what I can tell, none of those have made it to Blu-ray yet. I believe they all are available on DVD. But based on how I felt about this, I would love to see the rest of the series released on Blu-ray. That'd be nice. But I'm glad that they at least have this out on Blu-ray so far. 2K scan of the Inner Positive, and this one was from 2019. DTS 2.0 audio, no special features, but once again, good audio-visual quality, some nice aquatic colors and everything, and pretty deep black levels. I didn't notice any major compression artifacts, anything like that, but overall, Man from Atlantis. Good-looking disc. If you're interested in it at all, it's worth checking out. And my final title is from 2018. This is a 2-part TV movie, and that is The Blue Knight with William Holden and Lee Remick. Now, Lee Remick, she's another one I've developed a fondness for. I found her very charming in this one. I believe I saw her recently with James Garner in Wheeler Dealers, which I talked about a few months ago. And she's just becoming someone that I'm becoming infatuated with. William Holden, this is a pivotal role for him later in his career because he won an Emmy for this one. This is a lengthy endeavor. This is over 3 hours long. It's 3 hours and 8 minutes long. It aired over 2 nights, and it is William Holden as a beat cop who is in the last week of his kind of tenure before he's going to retire, and he wants to make like one last like major like impression on his legacy, which involves him trying to solve the murder of this young sex worker who is killed, who he wants to try to track down her killer and help like put him away. And then he's trying to work with a little bit a young Sam Elliott's in here. You have people like Ann Archer and Eileen Brennan in the ensemble. But mainly it is William Holden walking around trying to do good police work for 3 hours. You quickly learn that he is definitely morally gray. He believes he's doing right. He believes he is trying to keep the street clean, but he uses his power in a certain way that is definitely an abuse of power at times, and he intimidates people, and the way he responds to certain criticisms isn't always the most level-headed. So he's not seen as like a spotless emblem of morality. There's definitely some complexity here, and that's what I kind of like about this, because he's not an overtly rogue cop who only does bad and stuff. Like he's complex, and I like that. And if you like kind of it's not an overly heightened version of this type of tale. It is a lot of him doing very grounded police work, not making like super heavy revelations. It's just very even keeled in a way that I find refreshing, that it's not like overly like unbelievable, but it's still very engaging, and it's really focusing more on the small character moments with this character, like him interacting with different people in both good and bad ways, and interacting with his girlfriend, played by Lee Remick, who he's like wanting to settle down with her once he retires, but like who will he be once he retires? That's kind of like a lot of what is weighing on him. But overall, I did like this quite a bit. It's a very entertaining movie. The 3 hours honestly did fly by. I think, especially if you like breaking up into 2 parts, I think it's very manageable. Even if not, it's an easy watch, and very much worth checking out. This one was from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive. Looks very nice. Warner Archive did a very nice job with this one. I don't even think it was released on DVD previously to when this was released at the end of 2018. I think you probably would have had to like seen this in the original run or like taped it on VHS or something, but this obviously looks way better than that. Looks really nice. DTS 2.0 audio, no features, but for a 3-hour project, you probably didn't want to stretch the bitrate any longer. But this is a good release of the Blue Knight. Definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of any kind of cop content with a little bit of complexity, or William Holden or Lee Remick or Sam Elliott, anybody. Check it out, Blue Knight. It's an interesting one. And it's just another one of Warner Archive delving into the TV movie television space that I really appreciate. So good on them. Started with TV movie, ending with TV movie. That is my show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found developed a love for the Warner Archive like I have. There's a lot of stuff in here to appreciate. If you see something that you like, let me know what you like. If you see something that you think one of your friends would like, make sure to share this with them, because what's better than giving the gift of physical media to people? I appreciate anyone who helps spread the word about this show. I love doing this for you. I appreciate whenever everyone comments and lets me know what they want me to talk about. Whenever you give me a thumbs up, whenever you subscribe to the channel, all that is great. I appreciate it. I love doing this for you. I will be back again next week, as always. But until next time, enjoy these movies.